if you're investing.
Investors will.
The podcast for all things real estate investing.
Hello again, investor community. Welcome back to another episode of Investor One-on-One, where we talk to the leading investors nationwide. Today we got a very special guest, David Olds. Welcome, David.
Glad to be here, man. I appreciate it.
Before we get started, let's just do a quick background and intro about
Yeah.
you. David is a real estate investor based in Tennessee with over 20 years of experience, flipping
Yeah.
houses, building a portfolio of 100 rentals, and mastering wholesaling, property management, and raising private money. He now runs a nationwide wholesale business and is a highly sought after speaker and coach, helping investors scale their business and achieve financial freedom. So, David, let's start with
Mhm.
your story. How did you get
Yeah.
into real estate? And can you tell us more about your current business,
Sure.
EZREI?
Yeah. So kind of by accident, I grew up in Boston. We were talking about that a little before we jumped on. So grew up in Drake, Massachusetts, which is right by the New Hampshire border. And my dad, growing up, was an ex-military guy, and he was we're going to fix stuff ourselves. We don't hire anybody unless we really, really have to. So, I just grew up helping around the house. We built some additions. We two big additions on our house. And it's funny, as a kid, I hated absolutely every second of it, right? And I would say, when I grow up, I'm going to own a condo in Miami. I'm going to own a condo, and I'm never going to make my kids rake the grass and shovel dirt and do all this stuff. And lo and behold, what do? We all grow up to be our parents. So yeah, so grew up with that. That was kind of my background. I went to school. I have a degree in criminal justice, which now I tell people I only use when dealing with my tenants. But graduated, moved to Florida. My parents had moved down there just shortly after I graduated. Anyways, ended up in Florida and went to work for this home improvement company. It was called Scotty's Hardware Stores, and they were sort of like a precursor to Lowe's and Home Depot way back in the day. So kind of was doing that, working with people coming in to renovate their house, working with our contractor reps, going out to building sites. And I sort of remembered that, I was on the flip side of that coin as a kid, having to go to the lumber store and stuff. And I got married in 2002, and we bought our first house. And naturally, the first thing we did was, well, let's fix it up and remodel it. So I bought this house for like 97,000. Went in, we pulled up the carpet, put down new laminate, fixed the kitchen, put up crown, just new moldings, door moldings and baseboards and whatever it was. And 2 years later, we sold the house and made $50,000. And I'm like, oh, this is kind of fun. Let's do this again. So we went and bought another house, like the ugliest house in a beautiful neighborhood, and started remodeling that one. And in the middle of all that, it's the most cliche thing ever. I was at the airport, leaning on the rack at the bookshelf, killing some time, and I picked up Rich Dad Poor Dad, and that was really what got me into the real estate world. Because at the end of the book, Kiyosaki says, "Hey, go find a real estate meetup or a group or something like that if you want to be in real estate." And I went to my big computer in 2004, which or five, which it wasn't Google or anything. It was like web crawler and I found the Central Florida Real Estate Investors Group, and I went there, and that's a longer story, but essentially I just got really involved and took, as many classes and seminars and boot camps and all the things that I could to start to learn about real estate so I could do it as my part-time job while my wife and I worked full-time jobs.
That's amazing. And can you tell us
Yeah.
more about what you do today?
Yeah. So, when we were in Florida, again, my wife was a purchasing manager for a large builder, and I was I left the hardware company and went to work for a lumber distributor. So I was really just selling doors and windows. And then the crash happened, 2009. It was absolutely terrible. So we ended up leaving and moving to Chattanooga, Tennessee. And we came here just for real estate. So came here, really knew nobody, honestly had no money. Like, all the money that we'd made flipping houses, of course, we'd spent, right? We went on vacations, we paid bills, we bought cars, we did all those things. So we moved here with less than $5,000 between us and my brother, who also came with us. So it was me, my wife, two boys, three fat dogs, and my brother on $5,000. So we knew we had to do something. I'd never wholesaled, but I knew what it was. So we got real desperate or aggressive, whichever term you like. And we started putting out like bandit signs every place we could. We were putting out a couple hundred a week. We were door knocking, driving for dollars, just any way that we could to generate leads. And we worked really hard, and we ended up doing like 40 deals in our first year over the first 12 months. So that kind of kicked everything off. Then from there, we started adding in some owner finance properties that we bought. We bought over 100 rentals that way. Then as the market changed, it was, rehabbing and flipping those, because that was what we had a background in. And I know it's kind of a long ways to get to where we're at, but then we're like, well, we brought on a couple extra partners. Well, now we need to work in multiple markets because we have all these people. So, this was before virtual wholesaling was a thing, right? Before, motivated sellers was around or anything else or investor lift or any of these things. So we had to figure out how to do virtual wholesaling. And we figured out a lot of ways to lose money. We failed at it just a tremendous amount of times. Said we would create ways to screw up because we just didn't know what we were doing. But eventually we grew that into Nationwide Property Liquidators, where, at one point we were in 100 markets across the country. So we were running a very big operation here out of our office in Chattanooga. And over time we lost a couple of partners, some people left, we broke up with some people, and we kind of weaned it down to about 28 markets, and we were operating really good. We were doing quite a bit of business, a couple $1 million a year. And we sort of fell backwards into the business we are now. So what we run now is easy REI closings. We're the nation's largest transaction coordination company. So we work with wholesalers and investors, probably the same people that use you guys, and we get their deals closed. So we do basically all of the paperwork from the time they get their contract signed, they hand that over to us and they're done. We talk to the seller, we have our own internal title company. So we do everything from the time you get your contract, just hand that over to us and we'll get it closed and basically send you a check. And we sort of fell backwards into that company too. When COVID happened, a lot of people let go of their internal team because they had to scale back a little bit. And we still had our coordinators. And because I was kind of known for coaching the dispositions and creative financing and, sort of curing title problems, title curative, a lot of people were always coming to me. So when they had let their people go, they're like, oh, hey, can your people help us close some of these deals? And that's kind of how it started. And then we realized that there was nobody in the industry that helped investors close their deals. And, I'll ask you this. Do you know what the close rate is on contracts in the United States for investors?
I'm
Just
not
guess.
sure.
What do you think? What percentage
Um,
are closed?
let's say 77%.
50%.
Wow.
50%. It's even worse. There are some states where it's even higher. And that's data that we pulled from First American Title Insurance, also from the Family Mastermind. Some of the largest CRM guys that run the biggest CRMs have that data. So 50% of deals are never going to close, right? So you picked your market, you did your marketing, you bought your leads, you did your acquisitions, you did your dispositions, and still half of your contracts you'll never realize any money from them. And the reason for that is because there are title problems, right? What do we all do? Even you guys supplying the best PPL leads, right? Is we target people who are in distress, right? Death, divorce, taxes, bad tenant, whatever, late water payments, whatever it is, right? Anybody who will click a web form at 2 in the morning on a Sunday is probably under some kind of distress, right? very it's not normal that it's like just this house with a perfect title and it's just ready to close. And that's okay, right? Because the more problems we can solve as an investor, the lower the discount we can get. However, on the closing side, when we want to wholesale that property or put it into our own portfolio, we have to we have to clean up all those problems. So that's why, 50% of these deals die, because the normal investor does not know how to do a monument of title. They don't know what to do when there's a lost death certificate. They don't know what to do when there's no trust documents, but the property's in a trust, or when the seller's in jail or overseas or any of those types of things. So that's where we really specialize and come in and can help those, our clients get more deals closed than they would on their own.
Well, that's amazing. First of all, amazing story, very, very inspiring. I could tell
Thank you.
you've had lots of up and downs in your journey, and
Oh
that
my goodness. Yeah.
and that kind of led you to where you are today, with all the knowledge
Yeah.
and experience and trying so many different things until you finally caught on to what investors really need. So,
Yeah.
kudos to
I
that.
tell I tell people 22 years doing this business, 23 years here pretty soon. I was just too dumb to quit. Yeah, I mean, we definitely had a lot of success wholesaling and rehabbing, and we still have all those properties. But yeah, I never dreamed that I would own a title company in 9 states and that we would be doing 7,000 transactions a year for people. But here we are.
It's amazing. Really great work.
Thanks,
So,
man.
as you said, you're known for helping wholesalers and investors
Mhm.
across the country close more
Yeah.
deals. and you've also built a nationwide operation, to streamline their whole operation.
Yeah.
What key systems have you put in place to scale, and how did you
Yeah.
make that happen?
So, scaling is a very challenging thing. We've scaled up our wholesale companies a couple of times. We've definitely scaled up the transactions company, and now we're in the process of scaling up the title company. Two things are really important. One is having an amazing team, and that's hard. It's really hard to build a good team. And you're going to, if for every 10 people you hire, eight of them are not going to be the right person. And that's okay, right? You just have to sort through the people, find the people, and build a culture of people who see your vision, they believe in your vision, and they want to kind of lock arms with you and help you get there, right? So it's very important as a business owner to really communicate to everybody that's on your team, hey, here's what we do, right? Here's why we do it, right? So for us, we are the nation's leading transaction coordination company, right? Why we do it is to help our clients, really make more money, have more time, and just have more freedom, right? That's why we do it. So we want to help all of our clients. We just really want to be their partner in scaling. So yeah, super important that your team, their vision is aligned with yours. I've seen so many times where people start these companies and it's super clear in their brain, but their people don't necessarily always understand where they're going. So that's one. And the other one is simple is scalable. All right. We really live by that. That's kind of an Elon Musk thing too, right? They're always trying to, the simpler we can keep this business, the more streamlined it becomes. If anybody's ever watched that movie, The Founder, with Michael Keaton, where it talks about the rise of McDonald's, that's something that McDonald's was really amazing at, right? They were able to. There's this one scene where I think they're in an gymnasium or something, and they tape out the kitchen of a McDonald's and where all the machines are, and they're trying to simplify the route and where the placement of the machines are to make the process as easy as possible. So if you're going to scale, as a business owner, we get it. We're all like, we understand the whole process. It's all in our head, but we're going to bring people in to do one particular part of that business. And I have to make that process as simple as possible. It can't be like doing complex calculus, right? I want them to understand, hey, here's what your kind of piece in the pie is, or your cog in the wheel. Here's what you do, and I want you to be better at it than absolutely anybody else, right? So we have an intake person. I want you to be the very best. I want you to understand your job and make sure that we're here to serve the client. And we have that all the way through the processes, all the different positions in our company. And for me, I have an amazing partner. My COO, she actually came from Amazon, and she understands processes and SOPs like nobody I've ever seen. So important to have somebody like that in your life.
Those are some really good insights,
Yeah.
hiring people who are the best at what they do. Pretty sure
Yeah.
Steve Jobs said something very similar to that.
Sure.
So
Yeah.
that,
Yeah, I'm
the
I'm not the smartest guy in the world. I try to read a lot of good books and follow instruction. But, like I was saying, you're going to hire 10 people, and eight of them, they're going to stay for a little bit. I'm not saying they're bad people, but they may not be your 5-year, 10-year, 8-year people that really are going to run with you for a long period of time. So, you're going to hire some people, and you're going to find that 1 out of 10, two out of, or 1 out of 6, I don't know, whatever it is, however the math works. I'm not a math guy, but I'm going to find that person that really believes in what we're doing, and you get along, and you want to be on this journey with that person. And those are the people that you build around. Those are the people that become your leaders, right? Your team leads and your managers, and those are the people you want to take care of them, and just be a good servant leader.
exactly. I couldn't agree more. So one of the
Yeah.
things you said in the beginning, where you said two things. First of all, you said the book Rich Dad Poor Dad and how that kind of
Oh,
got you into real estate. First of all, I want to tell you that a lot of the investors I interview have started with reading that book. So whoever,
it's the
so
most
all
cliche thing ever, right? It's that when I'm like, you're never gonna guess. I read Rich Dad Poor Dad, but
listen,
yeah,
but it works. So
yeah.
everyone that I've interviewed is successful in their own
Hmm.
aspect. So to our
Yeah.
2000 plus investors hearing this, this is, a must for real estate investors.
Oh,
That's one thing.
yeah.
Second thing is, again, every real estate investor fails. You were talking about the amount of failures you had, the amount of
Oh,
money you lost.
yeah.
It's just a
Yeah.
part of the process. You know what I mean? So everyone makes mistakes,
Dude,
especially successful
that's
people.
yeah, and I think that's really important to say because we are in such an Instagram world of instant gratifications, and everybody's got the Rolex and the Lambos and all that bullshit. Like that's awesome. those are that should be very aspirational, inspirational. But I promise you, like you, I know just about everybody in this industry. And the most successful people that you see on Instagram have bad days. They have weeks where, geez, something went wrong, or a month where you have trouble making payroll. Right? Do not feel like I'm a failure because I'm having a tough week, right? Nobody, when you got your LLC, nobody promised you that this was going to be easy, right? You're running a business. It's hard. There are days where this feels like you're pushing a rock up the hill. The rewards, though, for the people who stick with it and don't quit are just amazing, right? Like I tell people, real estate's giving me a life that I don't deserve. That doesn't mean that I don't still have rough days and rough weeks, right? That is just a reality, and it's okay, right? I was telling somebody yesterday that was going through a tough time. Listen, it is fine. We all have something that happens where you lose a $74,000 deal at the day of closing, right? Or I had one, when we were still wholesaling, it was like 105,000 that a realtor screwed up for us. Like those days suck. However, it's okay to be upset today and hang your head a little bit, but you come back tomorrow ready to fight. Like we're getting back in the game, and that's why, you guys have such a great pipeline of leads for people. Keep working those deals. Don't ever think this one deal is going to be, the only deal that you do. So, stay in the game.
I agree. So following up on that, what's one mistake you made early in your career that you wish you learned
Yeah.
from sooner?
Oh my God, bad bookkeeping and accounting. Oh, it's the simplest one ever. Like horrible. One of the things for us is we had such amazing success right out of the gate because, and I mean, it wasn't luck. Like we worked our asses off. Real estate from the moment my feet hit the floor, real estate was the thing I thought about at 7 in the morning till 11, 12 o'clock at night, right? We were very, very focused and committed. And I do think success takes some of that. But so we had a lot of success, and we're flipping houses, we're making money, we're churning stuff through, we're spending money on marketing, we're doing all the things. And, I relate it to like a little kid in the red wagon going down a hill, right? Your arms are like, wee, we're doing stuff, we're flipping houses, we're buying some rentals, we're doing all these things. And you get to the end after a couple of years, and I'm like, oh my, like I got to do tax returns. I need to have bookkeeping. What is QuickBooks? Like what are all of these things? So yeah, I mean, definitely setting that up. I don't think you should set it up before you start, but once you get going a little bit, like don't wait too long. And even though after 2 years, I really did it half-assed for probably the first 5 or 6 years, and I wish I had done that better. So one thing is, yeah, definitely better bookkeeping. And two, I guarantee you, every seasoned investor that's been around for 10 years, that's wholesale, that you bring on here will say the other thing is, I should have kept more houses for myself. 100%. Like I get with guys who are in my town when we used to wholesale here a lot. And every one of us is like, oh man, I remember selling that house for 14 grand. We made 5,000 on it. Now it's worth 300,000. It's just ridiculous. But I don't have regret. I wish could have done it different. But also at the time we were young and broke, and we were just flipping houses and making, five, 10, $15,000 wherever we could.
Yeah, for sure. Everything happens for a reason, but it's always good
Yeah,
to know
sure. I mean,
things
that's
from the beginning.
definitely advice. And I'm sure people told me that. And I was like, yeah, what do you know? Hold houses, the prices are always going to go up. The values are always going to go up, inflation. And I'm not an economist, but your dollars will only get cheaper as we go along. So buy and hold as much as you can. I wish I'd have bought 300 houses instead of 100.
As you said in your story, something that I caught on is you started with your wife and
Hmm.
you guys bought a home not knowing this is going to be a big part of your
Yeah.
future, this industry.
No
And
idea.
over the years, the industry has been changing so fast, from going
Oh,
old
so
school
different.
calling people, knocking doors
Yeah.
to
Yeah.
digitally getting leads and virtually wholesaling. So the world's just completely different from what it was.
Yeah.
And you yourself today, you're a very strong figure in the industry. You're very connected. I see your social media. I love it, like I told you before. If you had to start over in
Yeah.
2025 without the social media, without the connections, without the
Yeah.
money, how would you go about getting your first wholesale or investing
Yeah.
deal?
If, well, interestingly enough, I've got a new wholesaler that I'm going to start mentoring next week. We were talking about this today. He's a college kid with zero money. So we're going to bring in and we're going to catalog. video blog it or whatever. But we're going to get him to 100,000 in 3 months, and he's got $0. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to go out and I'm going to teach him how to drive for dollars, because that's where we started. Everybody can do that. It costs you some gas and some stamps. So that's what we're going to do. And I told him we're going to do that until we get the first deal, right? And I'm saying you're starting with zero. The next step is we're going to come to you, and we're going to start to buy some very targeted leads that are just in our market here, Knoxville and Chattanooga. So if you've got a little bit of money, or if you got a credit card, then I would skip the driving and just come directly to just buying leads that are already literally served up for you on a on a silver platter. None of that existed, dude. None of that was there when we Google didn't even exist when I started, right? There was no Facebook. It's ridiculous now when I hear people say this business is hard. I'm like, bro, you don't know hard. Like when we would comp properties, there was a service. I think it was called RealQuest way back in the early 2000s, and it was like it was like baby version of PropStream or Batch, and you had to like print out the list of 10 properties that were comps and go drive them, right? To look at them and go, oh, is this similar to the one that I'm doing? So like when I would go on an appointment, you would go 30 minutes early to go look at all of your comps. No, I mean now there's everything with the software and technology, you could do all this stuff without leaving your house. It's fantastic. It's amazing. It's so easy to scale. It's easy to, if you live in a bad market where there's just not a lot of people, maybe you're in a place where there's a town that's rural where there's 20,000 people, you can invest any place in the country just like that. You can drop into pick a market, right? It's literally just software. I go on your site, I buy some leads, I got PropStream, I pay $100 a month for. Yeah, I mean, it's ridiculous how easy it is now to compared to or the early 90s early 90s 2000. And I get it, man. I'm now that old guy on on the porch in the rocking chair in my day. But yeah, dude, it's a lot simpler now than it used to be. We didn't have access to all the cool toys.
For sure. So you're saying leverage the technology that's out there.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
And
I interviewed Lou Brown, who he was like an old timer when I started, right? He'd been around forever. So we were on the podcast in Dallas last year, and I said, Lou, how in the world did you comp stuff in 1980? You know what he said? He's like, we
yeah,
pulled out the newspaper and we looked at the for rent ads, and we're like, oh, that street's a couple streets over from where my house is, and it's renting for $300 a month. That's what mine will rent for. And then they would, the old houses for sale used to be listed in the newspaper, and there would be like by area, Highland Park, Ridgeland, Eastridge, whatever. And that's how these guys would comp. They would literally just look at what something was for sale, and then they would, look at the property that they were at. So even when I started, it was infinitely easier then, and then now, it just keeps getting easier and easier for people.
for sure. And I'm looking forward to seeing this documentary vlog style
Yeah.
of this new
Yeah,
wholesale.
it's going
So
to be fun. His name is Jonah. He's a college student, part-time bartender, and yeah, we had a meeting yesterday, and we're going to start next Monday. It's going to be fun.
amazing. And how can we see that, the audience here? How can we like
That'll just be on our YouTube channel, which is everything for me. All of our socials, everything is David Olds REI. So yeah, we'll put that on YouTube.
perfect? Okay,
Yeah,
on to our next question.
do it.
So, as I told you before, Jason kind of introduced us, and Jason wanted me to ask a very specific question. He said you're
All
the
right.
best when it comes to Dispo tips and all that stuff.
Yeah,
So,
yeah,
as the market becomes more competitive, as we said, better technology is coming. At the same time, a lot of new investors are joining. A lot of people are seeing
true.
that, look, this real estate thing is real. People are actually making money if we put in the work.
Yeah.
So, it's becoming more competitive. Markets are going up, some markets going down. How do you ensure your acquisitions team locks up the best deals and your
Yeah.
dispositions team moves them quickly? What
Mhm.
strategies or systems have you implemented to stay ahead of the competition?
So a couple of things there. Great question. When I was teaching dispositions, I would fly out and I would coach some of the biggest teams in the country. And I would always start, before I would talk to the dispo side of the business, I wanted to talk to the acquisitions people. And I would sit them down and say, hey, tell me about your process. How are you comping things? How are you coming up with a price? What are you doing? And so often, even at the acquisitions companies for some of the biggest influencers out there, I'm like, oh, well, I offer between 45 and 52% of Zillow. Like, and that's just what I do. I'm like, okay, cool. I said, but how about this? How about when we look at a property, right? we try to imagine, how does our end buyer make money on it? Right? Because 45 to 70 or 45 to like 52% of Zillow doesn't always make sense. What if there's a tenant in there, right? And the tenant's got 10 months left on their lease, right? What if it's a house that's burned down, right? Or what if it's just a piece of land? So the most important thing, to set your team up for good dispositions is to make sure that on the acquisition side, somebody, right? Somebody on your team, if it's not the acquisitions, maybe your sales manager, is looking at every deal and going, oh, okay, great. How would a buyer make money on this? Because remember, at the end of the day, just getting a seller to sign the contract, I get it. We all ring the bell and hit the gong and we're going to order jets. But if I can't get this property all the way to closing and get somebody to pay me for it, right? It's no good. So I want to always sit down with the acquisitions people and go, okay, great. Let's evaluate this property. Who do we think our buyer is? Oh, there's a tenant in and they've got 6 or 8 months. Cool. Well, now we need to just understand in this market where this property is, what are landlords paying for a rental property? Are they on the 1% rule, 2% rule? Meaning if it rents for, $1,000, fair market value is 100,000, right? Or, there are some places where it rents for 1,000 and the market value is 60, right? So we need to just understand just a little bit about what's going on in that market. If we're buying a property and it's vacant, right? Who's our buyer? Well, probably a rehabber, maybe a landlord, right? So now we want to price it according to that. Okay, what are cash deals like this one in this market selling for, right? I've never ascribed to 70% of ARV minus repairs, all that. It's nonsense because people will do two things. One, they'll overinflate the ARV. They'll be super optimistic, like, I see a lot of sales at 170, but I think this one will get 190. Right? That's nonsense. You're just fooling yourself. And then the other thing they do is they underestimate repairs. Right. So that's one side is they just get optimistic. Like we've all seen this. Wholesalers are like, excuse me, oh, $15,000 in repairs. I actually saw one the other day and literally plasters falling off the walls. Like, I don't know that that's $15,000. But the other thing is they don't ask good questions of the seller. So if you're going to do this virtually, right, you're not standing in the house, you don't feel the floor crooked, you can't smell the sewage. So I have to ask really good questions. So I'm like, hey, Mrs. Smith, tell me about the kitchen. She's like, oh, the kitchen's great. It's really clean. Everything works good. And you don't stop and ask some follow-up questions and you just move on. Then you get your pictures back and you're like, oh, it's got a green from like a countertop with a metal band on it and shellacked plywood cabinets. Well, yeah, the kitchen's great and functional, but you should have budgeted $20,000 for a new kitchen, right? So, a lot of the mistakes that we see are on the acquisition side. And then of course, if it's land, we need to know what builders are, what percent of the, end build price are there's the house they sell, what percentage are they willing to pay for the land? So I think that's a big thing on the front side is making sure that your acquisitions team knows. I know that was a long answer for your question.
Great
On
answer.
the other side, on the other side, for people who are doing traditional marketing on acquisitions, I tell them on the Dispo side, you have to be just as aggressive, right? We need to go out there and find every single possible buyer for this property, right? When we used to do what we called a launch on our properties, right? It's freaking shock and awe. My team, I told them, your mandate is get this freaking property in front of every single person on day one who might be looking to buy a property in this area, right? So we want to pull the cash buyers. I want to text them. If you want to RVM them, you can do that. I want to email them. I want to put it in Craigslist. I want to put it on Facebook. I want to put this thing in every single place possible. If if I thought Pornhub was where all our buyers are, and they probably are, I would pay for an ad to put it there too. I don't care. We are in this high-speed wholesale business. My job is to sell this freaking deal today. Why? Because I have an acquisitions team that's getting another 5 deals this week. I need to move this one out and get the next one in, right? So we are incredibly aggressive in our dispositions. We want to price it right, right? We're not gonna, again, we're selling 5, 6, 7, 8 deals a week. I don't have time to be like, oh, hey, great. I know you're making me a full price offer, but um, I think I'm just going to wait a day or two and see if anybody else gives me a higher offer. Dude, that's amateur hour. You're doing 1 deal a month. Get that deal, take their money, get it to closing, move it out, get the next property in, right? You put on there that you would take the 30, whatever you priced it at, like take that number and move on. Now you get 2 offers at the same time, fine, give them highest and best, but take that offer, like let's move that property out, let's go on to the next one. We are wholesalers. It is not our job to extract every drop blood out of every deal, right? And this is what creates your buyers. They'll want to come back to you. I think, buyers absolutely hate highest and best. I hate it. I'm a real buyer. I didn't always buy all my rehabs myself. Sometimes I had to get them from wholesalers or on MLS. So be aggressive with Dispo. Make sure your acquisitions team understands that. And then your marketing has to be good, right? As a kind of a final thing here. So, we used Investor Lift heavily. We were actually user number 11 of all the Investor Lift users. And, I used to teach a lot of classes for them. And, what I would tell people is, listen, imagine, this house is in Cincinnati, you're in Fort Lauderdale, but your buyer's in California, right? Have you given the buyer on your listing, have you given them every bit of information they need to make a buying decision sitting on their couch? Because if you haven't done your job. We are marketers, right? Housing is just our widget. It's our job. I want to tell them the square foot, the size of the lot, what type of sewage it is. Is a sewer or septic? How many bedrooms? What's the inside look like? What are roughly, what do we think the repairs are? How close is it to schools? How are they going to make money? Right? If you rehab this property, here's the ARV on flip properties. If you're going to be a landlord, here's what current rents are. You can come in immediately and raise the rent. Hey, if this is land, you know, these five houses, somebody bought this land for this price and built this house and sold it for that, right? Provide all of that information, because if you do a bad job, a shitty job, right, and you only give people a little bit of information because you're lazy, then what's going to happen? They're going to click off your site, go to Zillow and start hunting around. And once they leave your site, 50-50, they never come back. It's just the way it is, right? So don't be lazy, go out there, have good acquisitions, be very aggressive getting your deal in front of as many people as possible. And then, make sure when they do see it, that all the information's there and you have a good call to action, which means pick up the phone and call me. Our last deal sold in 3 hours.
Those
Sorry,
are
long
some
answer.
amazing answers. No, for sure. I like how you go into detail on both sides and,
Yeah.
you know, just keep it going, get the deals going, and that's how you scale up and, run your business. So I really appreciate that answer. It's well thought
Yeah.
and well said. And you spoke a little bit about marketing.
Mhm.
How do you, and you said a little bit of the ways you do also, but just let's
Yeah.
elaborate on that. How do you find motivated sellers in today's market? And when you're
Yeah.
evaluating a deal, how do
Mhm.
you know when to walk away? Are there any red flags you look for?
Well, I mean, the way that I find for the last couple of years, all of my buyers, we used Investor Lift. I mean, I don't know of anything out there that's any better than that. If you don't have that, you can certainly go to PropStream and pull a list of cash buyers, recent cash buyers within, a radius of your property. So, I want to start with my property, depending upon how dense the area is and how much activity. If I could do 6 months in the last half mile, great, right? Those are real buyers that are buying usually apples and apples type properties. Um, but I want to build a list of 200, 300 cash buyers if I can. And I want to get this deal, absolutely in front of them. And I want to try to, when I say shock and awe, right? What I'm saying is, because I've had this conversation with our team in the early days, we'd have a meeting and I'd be like, there was three of them. And it was like, hey, Cassandra, like, what do I had three Dispo agents, they're all women. Hey, what are you doing today? Oh, well, I did this and this other thing. And yeah, I might have somebody for this deal. Like, great. Rachel, what did you do? Well, I did this and that and something else. And okay, cool. Taylor, what did you do? Well, I did these things. I'm like, ladies, we should be doing 10 things every single deal. And you guys are doing six, and you're not even doing the same six, right? There was no system. So what we evolved to, and the way that we became so efficient at moving these deals out, is like when we say launch a property, everything happens at the same time, right? We are prepared. The list is pulled, the cash buyers are pulled, the emails are ready, the RVMs are recorded, the social media posts are done, and like bam, 9 o'clock on Monday, between 9 and 10:30, that property goes out into that market. It's emailed, it's texted, it's RVM'd, it's in the Facebook groups, it's on Craigslist. We've called our VIP buyers, any agents that we've worked with. Like we are hitting that so as hard as we possibly can to drive in all of that traffic, right? My
Mhm.
goal was, when we launch a property, and we would launch properties in multiple markets at one time, is that the phones do not stop ringing. I do not want you to be able to get up and go pee, right? I want the phone to melt, right? Because again, I'm throwing all of my cards down. I don't want it to be like, oh, Monday, let's do an email. Cool, we got a couple responses. We didn't sell it. Oh shit, Wednesday. What are we gonna do? Oh, we should text it. I heard somebody said texting is good. Cool, we're gonna try that. Nothing by Friday. Shoot. Oh, Facebook groups. Why didn't I do Facebook groups? Right. And what happens is you just lose momentum on these deals. And this is why you're like, 3 weeks, I just can't think of anything to do to sell the house because you just waited so long and it just kind of trickled out. Nobody was excited, right? There was no sense of urgency with your buyers. And, as far as red flags, like you should listen to your buyers, right? I was telling Jonah yesterday, right? The longer you do this business, the better you're going to be. You're not going to come out of the gate and be me. I've done this for 22 years, but you have to pay attention to what your buyers are saying. And I'm not saying the first buyer you call is like, your deal sucks. They're all going to say that, right? But you have 10 buyers who are like, hey man, there's a crack house next door. I can't pay that for this house. Well, then that's reasonable, right? You should be watching for that in the future. And when you get that kind of feedback from your all of your buyers, like, hey man, I get it. You think 88,000 is too much. What do you think is a reasonable number? Oh, 72. Okay, I don't know if I can do that, but let me talk to my partner. Then maybe I would jump on the phone with the seller and go, hey, I know when we talked on the phone, we didn't talk about XYZ. And you don't have to dream up what XYZ are because all of your buyers are going to tell you the problems with your property. They're always going to tell you why your deal sucks, right? Hey, Mrs. Smith, hey, I know when we were talking, you know, maybe you didn't know because it's a rental property, but hey, I sent a couple of my inspectors over there, and seems like the kitchen's got a couple of broken floor joists. Maybe it was from the water that's been leaking under the sink for the last 6 months, and there's a little bit of a sewage smell. So I think, I'd love to buy the property. I think I can close on it next week, but sounds like we need to adjust the price to accommodate for some of these things. Would you be open to that? Do you still want to move forward? Like that's it, right?
Mhm.
So, I don't know that there's I don't want to say there's never red flags. Like on the title side, there are definitely red flags like, oh, I bought it in a tax sale or I inherited it, or right. There's some things there. And I don't know if we have enough time. We definitely don't have enough time to go into all of those. But you should just be asking good questions on the acquisition side as best you can. But when you do get feedback, kind of gather all that up and make that one call back to your seller and go, hey, you know, I'd love to get this done for you. I know whatever that pain point is, right? I know you got to move to Phoenix with your cat because your cat has psoriasis, right? whatever it is, right? Hey, I know, I want to do this for you. I know you have this pain point. Here's where we need to be. Would you be open to that? Some version of that kind of conversation.
Amazing. So really listening to both sides, listening to the pain
Yeah,
points and seeing how you can,
sure.
connect between the two. I love that.
100%. How can we, because that's our job, right? Our job as investors, our whole job is we're here to make things better, right? We're here to solve problems for people. And, that person, that house is still keeping them up at night, right? You maybe agreed to a price that's too high. If you miss stuff, that feedback from your buyers, like, damn, I should have asked that question, right? That's where you learn, right? And you start to get better and better and better.
So David, you've been in the industry for 22 years. We've said that a couple of times already, and I love that. And
Ridiculous amount of time.
it's great because you got to see the market always changing. You've always tried new things. It's the same industry, but it's been different over the years.
Yeah.
How do you
Mhm.
stay adaptable when things change rapidly, like
Yeah.
during a recession or when
Mhm.
new regulations are introduced, especially for your business?
There's a lot, yeah, and there's a lot of new regulations coming out. One thing I think that's great is, as entrepreneurs and wholesalers and small business owners, we're very light on our feet, right? Like we can adjust and pivot very, very quickly. So much faster than any state can put any regulation in. So that's the great thing, right? Like I never worry about regulation. There's always an answer. There's always a way to solve that problem. What I think is important, and this is another thing that I was very bad at the beginning, is tracking your numbers, right? We want to track. In fact, I just got out of a meeting this morning where we went over all with my COO, all of our year end of 2024 numbers. But we always want to look at in our business, just basic stuff, right? Like how many leads did I get? Or how many leads did I buy? How many people picked up the phone? How many conversations did I have? How many offers did I make? How many contracts did I get? How many of those contracts actually closed? Right. So, if we're tracking that data, then we can, after some amount of time, 90, 180 days, a year, we can look at those and see where the trends are, right? Where are the places where we're having problems in our business? Because when you start to track at every single step, you can start to see, oh, this is where my business is cratering, right? So it's not like the whole process has to be torn up and thrown away. I can really dial in as a business owner and go, oh, my dispositions is having a problem, right? All of a sudden I was assigning 80% of my contracts. Now I'm only assigning 60. What happened? What happened in the step before that? Oh, I put in a new acquisitions manager and maybe he's starting to offer too high. Great. Let me fix that and that will bring this back into place. So, there are leading and lagging indicators, but we always want to be looking at the numbers and making sure that we're staying on track for where we should be. And when all of a sudden something breaks, right, we can go in there and
Mhm.
start to look at, what's happening. It could be a million reasons, right? Like, hey, I'm getting the property under contract, I'm assigning it, but it's not closing. All of a sudden my close rate dropped to 30%. Cool. Well, let's go backwards and start to look at everything, right? Because we always for me, when I look at every company, I always start with the end in mind, right? But let me go backwards. Oh, well, now I'm doing probate deals. All of a sudden, I started buying probate leads, and probate leads we take 7 months to close. But my acquisitions guy didn't realize that we were going to need to do, whatever was going to be needed on the probate side. And then I was telling my buyers, yeah, man, we can close this thing in 3 days. We can get this done, right? Well, that's a that's an inconsistency, right? We can't possibly do that. So by understanding and tracking those numbers, it's going to really allow you to be able to step back and go in and dissect where you have flaws in your business. Yeah,
On to the next question.
do it.
So you're based in Tennessee,
Yeah,
and the market has been booming from what I heard over the years in Tennessee.
good. It's
A
great.
lot of people are moving there, real estate's going
Yeah.
up. What
Mhm.
unique opportunities or challenges do you see in the Tennessee real estate market compared to
Yeah.
others? And are
Mhm.
there any other areas investors should keep an eye on for the next few years?
Tennessee is great. When I was wholesaling, I always said Chattanooga's terrible. Don't come here. No, Tennessee's an absolutely great market. It's one of the few states with no income tax. Houses are still, reasonably priced. Now Nashville's, hyperinflated compared to Chattanooga, but there are some great opportunities here. If you're listening to this and want to be remote, Chattanooga's good. Murfreesboro is kind of between Chattanooga and Nashville. That's where the MTSU, Middle Tennessee State University is, and it's one of the fastest growing areas of the state. Clarksville, which is north of Nashville, between Nashville and the military base that's in Kentucky. I can't remember the name, but there are some great markets here that are just fantastic. I don't know why everybody's not coming here. So Chattanooga's good. We're about to release actually later today a report that we put together called The War on Wholesaling. And we really detail the 23 states and cities and states that have enacted regulations, even as recently as a couple of weeks ago, and kind of what you need to do in those states to stay compliant. Now, listen, you can always do whatever you want, and it's never a problem until it is, but we'll lay out, what Ohio and Pennsylvania and South Carolina and, what all Texas, what all the different states have done to put those regulations in and, you know, kind of detailing what they are and how you can, find ways to still operate legally in those states. So yeah, there's definitely some regulation out there that's coming down the pike. You know, the great thing about wholesaling, the absolute wonderful thing is it's a very low barrier of entry, right? Everybody can come in and do it. You can make a tremendous amount of money, young, old, tall, short, fat, skinny, blue, white, purple, doesn't matter, right? We can make a bunch of money. The bad thing about wholesaling is also very low barrier of entry. And people who are kind of shitheads and unscrupulous and want to take advantage of people do come in. And there's enough of those people that have started to make a bad name for us, right? So that's
Mhm.
what's happening. That's why, these people are getting elected to state legislatures and, starting to enact these rules.
I couldn't agree more.
Yeah.
So you've been so fun to talk with, and your story's amazing. And
Thanks.
as we know, in general, this industry is full of surprises. I'm gonna ask you though, what's the most insane or unexpected experience you've had in the industry? One of those you
Yeah.
won't believe this moments that most people don't know about.
Wow, man. There's been I mean, there's some crazy fraud stuff that we come across all the time. Um, it's something that really struck me, and we're in family mastermind with you guys. Which, for those of you who don't know, family it's an invite only mastermind for like everybody on our side of the business, so like service providers, coaches, and stuff. And even me being in the industry for a long time, I'm like, I got invited to go, and I'm like, oh God, it's going to be a bunch of blowhard coaches and douchebags, and they're just all going to have these overinflated egos. And I was just stunned when I went there how nice and genuine everybody was. And these guys, the Pace Morbies of the world, like literally getting on stage and like showing how they do every single thing. So, the one thing that shocked me is really real estate people are incredibly giving. They want to help other people. It's not like that in the plumbing and roofing industry and technology where everything is cutthroat. So yeah, I'm proud to be a part of this industry, and there are just some amazing people. I've met friends all over the country that just have helped me in my business, and just been great friends, like friends on every single level. So that's, I guess, the thing that really shocked me is how amazing the people are in this industry.
Amazing. So never, never judge anyone or judge a book by its
No,
cover and
yeah, no.
just do stuff, Try
There,
leaping
there
into
are
the fear.
people. Yeah, there are people that I saw on social media. I'm like, oh, that guy doesn't really resonate with me, and you start to think certain things, then you meet them in person, you're like, oh shit, God, I was a dick. He's a good guy, right? So
Uh-huh.
yeah, all of us, you can kind of judge a book by its cover, but um, I think pretty much with very few exceptions, everybody that's out there that's coaching or teaching really has their client's best interest at heart. And, I get it. Like, storage units aren't for me. That doesn't mean that guy's a scam. Like what he does teaches and it works really great. It just doesn't fit maybe my personality. So that's what I always tell people. Real estate, it's like being a doctor, right? You can be the eye doctor, the nose doctor, the mouth doctor, the ear doctor, the butt doctor, the toe doctor, whatever. Lots of ways to do real estate. Find something that you're passionate at, right? If you like talking to people, which clearly I haven't shut up here for an hour. If you like talking to people, right, go do like sales, do wholesaling, go buy houses. If you love paperwork, be a transaction coordinator. If you love paperwork, be in the short sale business, right? Like there's some part of real estate that fits everybody's kind of background and personality where you can really go in there and thrive. So, if you're not happy in kind of the niche or niche that you're in, like, and you want to make money in real estate, there's lots of ways to do it.
I love that. Wow. That was amazing, amazing, amazing. Thank you for that.
Yeah.
Sadly, we're on to our last question. And you
All
just
right.
said that you love to speak and you do it as a profession. You're a
Mm,
speaker and
yeah.
you're a coach. So you get to
Mm.
talk a lot to different types of people all over
Too
the
much. I get
states.
I get tired of hearing my own voice sometimes, but yes.
Well, you're fun to talk with. I really enjoyed our conversation today.
Yeah.
So, final question is, do you have a favorite quote or a phrase that keeps you motivated? And finally, to all our investors, is there any advice or message you'd like to leave with
Yeah.
our audience today?
Yeah, two quotes that we use here in the building a lot. One is, I've already said, simple is scalable, right? And that reminds us to never overcomplicate things because our brains can sometimes do that. And the other one comes from my COO, Heather. Hers is, if you do the thing works, right? And what that means is, when I have this conversation with new investors, maybe people that are thinking about buying their first lead from you guys, without a doubt, wholesaling works. Like there's zero question. I get it. You got to do your first deal to really believe that. But if you just follow the steps and you just do the thing and follow it through and you do enough repetitions, you get up to the plate and you swing enough times, you are going to get a deal. I promise you, you will, right? It's, just don't quit. That whole thing where the guy's digging in the tunnel and he's 2 inches from gold or 3 inches from gold, right? Like if you just do the thing works. And then kind of the last thing, there are days when this can be hard, right? Especially when you're first starting out. And, I don't want you to get discouraged. I get it. You're sitting at your kitchen table, you're calling leads, people are telling you you suck, right? Right. All those things, right? Telling you you're a bad person. And, it can be difficult. So find a tribe and find people that in your area, people you can meet with in person and go have coffee with once a week, or at minimum an online community where other people are doing the same thing, right? And you can draw from that experience and that inspiration of, oh man, these three guys got deals this week. I'm going to get one deal this week too, right? And then there'll be times where you're the guy getting deals and you need to help somebody who's having a down day. So really find that group of people that you can help motivate each other and inspire them. And, you know, don't get jealous of people. If you see somebody posting $100,000 check, go, God, that's awesome for you. Why am I not getting that? Right? Use that as inspiration to kind of drive you and go out and do this business because there's so many people to help. There's so much money to be made. I mean, it will give you a life, like I said, that dude, you've never dreamed of.
Amazing. David, it's been a pleasure having you on today and learning more about
Mhm.
you and your amazing work in the industry. I found
Thanks.
everything incredibly valuable, and I'm sure our investors did too. If our investors want to connect to you or learn more,
Yeah.
how can they find you?
The best place is Instagram. It's David Olds, REI. Actually, across all the platforms, it's the same thing. So Facebook slash Instagram slash TikTok, whatever. But yeah, hit me up on Instagram. If you have a question for me, I'll be happy to answer it there if I can. If I don't have the answer, I definitely know somebody who does, and we'll get you taken care of. And then yeah, we're like you said, we're just posting a lot of content on there, and yeah, just trying to add to the industry and help wherever we can. Man, thank you so much for having me on. I really appreciate it. I had a great time.